Oh, yes, everybody. This is the Flex Network back again for week 9 with a very, very special guest. And before we get there, in the box to my left, one at Seeley_Shane. Flex Shane is what we call him. Shane, you were missing on a milk carton last week because it was our Halloween episode. You were on the side of a milk carton. You had transformed into an evil figure in one at Alan Seslowski's room. But you are back. Thank you, man. How did your time away go?
You know, it's a little bit strange. I was talking to Al about it on the waiver wire pod earlier this week. It's like you're completely disconnected from all society, and like in fantasy football world, all the information and all the news starts like really coming in Friday, Saturday, and then obviously Sunday morning. So I just felt like completely disconnected. Like I felt like I was playing catch up the entire like next 3 days, just trying to find information. Be like, oh, what are the storylines? Oh, it already happened. Damn. But it was kind of nice, man.
Were you able to watch the game?
I got back like mid-afternoon on Sunday, so I was able to catch the afternoon games. But
and of course, you had it all recorded, right? You had it all.
Oh yeah,
recorded.
Of course. And I've got Sirius in my car, so I was doing a bunch of driving, so I was listening to the games in my car.
Well, welcome back, Shane, to the below me here. One at Alan Seslowski, ALANSES Low Sky. What's going on, Says?
I don't know if I can top Shane how he listened to football story. That thrilling story that was, Shane.
So compelling. Thank you, Al.
Yeah, so compelling. But yeah, no, always good to be talking with you guys on a Friday night. Love talking Friday night football, and especially with our delicious guest that we have sitting to my right.
So yeah, let's speak about our guest here. He is behind the veil. He is here to release juicy information. All of the information that he cannot speak about on physical camera, he came just via phone to us. Just kidding. His name is Scott A. Scott, what area of the world are you in?
I happen to be in Orange Park, Oakleaf, Florida.
Florida.
That's Jacksonville, man.
That's suburban Jacksonville.
Yeah,
suburban Jacksonville. Guys.
Suburban Jacksonville, and your specific title, Scott, for our listeners here. You are I'll let you describe it. What do you do for the NFL and the NCAA?
Okay, so for the NFL for Jacksonville home games, I am what's called a video operator. I'm one of 3 people in the replay booth, and on Saturdays I am. Essentially a replay official in the Big Ten.
So you physically are in the replay booth with the appointed X amount of people from the NFL for the Jacksonville Jaguars home games.
Correct.
Okay,
can we take a minute to acknowledge this is an awesome guest for those of you listening?
This is insane. I love
this. You know, the Flex Network, we give you our picks, we talk about our fantasy, and now the guests are coming. So thank you to Scott for definitely taking time out of your day. So
no
Scott, my first question for Scott is the replay. I'm not gonna pull any punches. The replays and the exhaustive replays are killing the NFL watching experience when you're doing the single games. What is the NFL doing here with the exhaustive replays on every little detail? Let's just come right out of the gate with it.
Well, the rules committee would be the ones you'd have to address. I mean,
yeah. No, I'm saying, but what's your insight on that? I know that you're just doing the job that they asked you to do, but is there like an internal feeling that the replays are now like? Are you busy? Don't you find yourself busier than you've ever been in any single given game?
Right. I think the trend in every sport now is to lean on replay, and there's less instinct on the field and on the court, and on the baseball diamond. There's a lot less instinct because we're relying so much on replay nowadays. So I think it's become more of a crutch. And over the years, sports is the allure of sports is the human element involved. And I think when you start removing the human element, you take away the purity of the game. You know, they were talking about robotic strike zones in some of the minor leagues. I think that's absurd. You know, I think that the
Well-
human element is what makes sports so enduring and alluring, in my opinion. So I think replay is a necessary evil because the athletes have become so big, strong, and quick that it's almost impossible to see everything.
Shane, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I guess that's kind of a question. So, Scott, so you know Al because you guys are both basketball officials together, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
Scott was one of my trainers.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I refereed basketball actually for 15 years. Here, I live in Calgary, Alberta, so a little bit of a different world than down in the southern U.S. But
right.
I kind of I understand the perspective of an official, and there's something very pure about to your point, the human element. I mean, ultimately, as an official, though, we always want to get things right. Like that's ultimately our goal is we want to make the right call on every play. Nobody's perfect. And I think the idea with these replays now is that people are trying to become perfect. The issue that, that I think a lot of fans just have, and I think that's the hat we're going to be wearing, is we're just, as a fan, it's like, going to Al's point, they introduced the pass interference replay this year, and the fact you can actually challenge it, but yet some of these seemingly obvious calls are still standing, either an obvious non-pass interference or an obvious pass interference because they're sticking with what was called on the field. I mean, I feel like this is going to be one of those rules that over time kind of it evolves and it does get better. But, in the near term, I mean, do you think that this is something, in your opinion, just your opinion, that's better for the sport, that we're basically micromanaging everything now? Or would it almost be better to take a step back?
Well, I think what happened in the incident that occurred in the NFC Championship game was unfortunate, but I think we became too reactive to it. Mm-hmm. And there was perceived injustice there, but I don't think that creating another aspect of reviewable plays was the answer. I mean, if we go back in time and see the human error that has occurred in sports, we'd have to have Superman reverse the Earth's rotation. And fix
Good
it.
movie.
So,
that was an awesome part of that movie, by the way.
Listen, it's fantastic. It was a little far fetched, but listen. So I think pass interference was a way too reactive way to handle that. I think, and I think you're seeing that the burden of overturning a call for pass interference or non-call on the field is extremely great, and I'm hoping that they do away with it after this season.
Well, Scott, Flex Matt here, buddy. Thank you. You talked about baseball and the robotic strike zones. Specifically talking, I know this is a football podcast, and I hate watching baseball, but my favorite
Well, kind of fun, man.
Hey, yeah, my favorite 4, 5, 6, or 7 games in the baseball season will be the last 4, 5, 6, or 7 games in the World Series. Well, I remember last night or the last game, whatever, Astros are down going into the 8th inning. They got someone on. There was a just clear miscall of a ball inside, way off the strike zone. I mean, so it seems like you're in agreement that maybe there should be some type of replay effect, out there, but you just don't necessarily agree to the extent that we are bringing replay to the forefront. You're almost thinking it's like the NFL's way of overcompensating for being so trashed almost, by getting some of these completely wrong. You're thinking that maybe it's an overcorrection of what we're doing now and we ought to settle in a little bit?
I think the strike zone is off limits. Percentage-wise, the number of pitches that the umpires get correct at just about every level is astoundingly high. So
well, Scott, hold on. This is a question that always says to me about picking a fantasy football play or something. If you had to rely on somebody, but you were only 82% sure that guy was going to be your guy for the week, would you get on a plane at 82% sure that was going to land safely? So wouldn't you instead want the game to be completely free of human chance and say, hey, that umpire gets 94% of calls right. Well, the 6% that he misses could be the literal pass interference call in the NFC Championship game, or the reason why that team can win win the Super Bowl.
Interesting analogy with the plane. No, you're right. Listen, we all want perfection, we do, but nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah, well, they say don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
Exactly. So, but to what extent do you want perfection? Do you want to slow the game down? Even the MLB, for instance, I know again it's not a baseball form, but MLB has tried to do things to speed up the game. So I would say if they try to do what you're suggesting with the strikes, balls and strikes, they might slow it back down.
Well, I think the contrary, Scott. I think if every single second that ball crossed the plate, we knew if it was a strike or a ball, and it just went on because the computer, there would be less arguing against the umpires for a game. There would be less decision-making on whether it was or wasn't, whatever. I mean, that would have to shore up some – sorry, I'm hitting you here, Scott.
No, that's okay.
I'm not trying to mean argumentative, but I just feel like, yeah, everybody wants perfection, but – there is a clear way, especially in baseball, where we can have a perfected call every single pitch across that plate.
Okay, so let me talk about the strike zone. I know this is football, but
by the way, Scott, this is for this specific podcast, our listeners know that this is about officiating. So don't worry about veering into any other sports. We want to hear it all.
All right. So technically, the definition of a strike is any part of the ball crossing through any part of the strike zone, correct?
Yeah, sure. I would say yes.
But in the major leagues, if the catcher's setting up, a few inches outside, and that ball I know it's not supposed to be where it lands, but the ball passes partly through the outside of the zone and lands outside on that catcher's glove, nobody in the league wants that called a strike. But if there's a robot involved, that's a strike. For example, a lot has to do with how the catcher receives it and things like that, where the batter's standing. So that's more appealing than having to adjust a ball or strike. That's just my opinion because nobody in the league would expect if a curveball goes from 12 to 6, as they say, falls off the table and goes through the bottom of the zone and it bounces into the catcher's glove. Technically, that's a strike. Nobody in the league, nobody in any league would want that called a strike.
Yeah, and I think that you hit on a great point, Scott. At what point does the technology hurt the experience? And I think that it's just a misuse of technology. I agree that the human element is what makes sports exciting. You're going to get some right. You're going to get some wrong. Obviously, when they instituted the catch rule, is it a catch? Is it not a catch? Was he, did he make a football move? Right. It just seems like the technology is there nowadays where they could put a chip in a football, and if it crosses the goal line in any way, you don't have to spend 5 minutes looking at it. The chip would just go off.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
The reason we have replay are for things, the advancement of the game that has become more difficult to the human eye. For instance, the home run that may or may not have hit a wall behind the yellow line and bounces back. The line drive that may or may not have gone inside the foul pole. The
toe tapping along the sidelines
and these guys are so good nowadays. It's just the catch, the fumble or down by contact that's so close to the ground, or in tennis, for instance, the serve the serves that are now upwards of 100 miles an hour, and they have those chips to determine whether the ball hit the line. That's difficult to see with the naked eye. This is the intent of replay.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you mentioned intent because, a lot of the thing that we always talked about in officiating was what's the spirit of the rule or what's the intent of the rule, right? And I'm just thinking about, this pass interference challenge. It's, again, the intent of the rule is anything like in that NFC Championship game that's clear and obvious, because I think is that actually in the rule book, clear and obvious, those words? Do you know off the top of your head?
The rule, I don't know what the specific rule says, but it's an obvious intent to impede.
Yeah.
is in.
So again, it's like it go back to it. It has to be clear and obvious. If a guy's got two hands on a guy and he shoves him out of bounds while the ball is coming towards him, yeah, it's clear and obvious if they miss it. But if there's a lot of, and it's almost like a judgment call, then they're erring on the side of caution and they're saying no, whatever was called on the field, we're going to stick with that. And I like that. I like that rule, and I think that coaches are going to get it right.
It's a large burden to overcome, and it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you have to instill confidence in your employees on the field.
Yeah, Scott,
that's true too.
I was going to say, Scott. So take us behind the curtain a little bit. So a call goes challenged on the field. How does it work from there? Take us through each step to where it gets to you, to what phone calls are exchanged. Just take us through the process from the moment the coach throws the red flag.
Well, every play is being looked at. Okay, we have the ability to go back and forth and look at different angles and things like that. So what we look for in the booth, if we think there's what's called smoke, meaning so if we have a catch near the sideline and everybody's yelling, "Oh no, he didn't catch it." So we're assuming that if it's called a catch on the field and people are up in arms about it, that the coach is going to challenge. Okay, and obviously in the last 2 minutes there are no challenges; it's all booth initiated.
Right.
So then we start hoping that the TV truck sends us some angles that we can look at. But when the coach is ultimately, the onus is on him and his staff to determine whether they want to challenge that. Because if the offense thinks it's not a catch, they're going to hurry to the line and force the hand of the coach.
So when you talk about a booth review, I mean, who in the booth? Like, how many people do you have working with you as replay officials?
So each crew has a replay official and replay assistant.
Okay.
And then the video operator. So we all have football experience. We're all looking at all the aspects. We're all it's pretty much a constant brainstorming up there.
Right. How many people on each side?
What do you mean?
How many replay officials do the Jags have, and then how is it the same amount that the Bears would have if they got brought in?
Yes, every booth in the league is the same.
Okay, so how many people are on your side, and then how many other people are?
Well,
in the room?
Go ahead.
We're employed by the league, not by the team. I just happen to be the local Jacksonville person working for the NFL on any given Sunday.
Okay, so like the Bears don't have their guys, and the Jags have their guys, and you guys all kind of collaborate on every game.
But I would imagine that every NFL club has someone designated to look at the angles that would either be advantageous or disadvantageous to them.
Okay, how many of you are there?
There are 3 in each booth on any given Sunday.
So,
okay,
Scott,
go ahead.
Sorry, Matt.
Go ahead.
So I was saying, once
sorry, we did it again.
So once you're tasked, so once there's smoke, as you guys call it, now you supply the videotape to the referee on the field, or are you guys in the booth making the determination? And if you're in the booth, who's going through is there someone there with like a rule book, like flipping through, or
no?
How does
well, part of earning your salary is knowing the rules. So we don't have time. Nobody has time to look up a rule.
Al, are you looking at your rule book when you're on the court, or what?
Absolutely not.
Nope.
But we're not. There's also not. There's not 50,000 fans and millions watching. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Alan, you know that. You got to know the rules, man.
Every time I miss a rule, Scott comes up to me on the basketball court and says, "What was that rule? What was that?" So yeah, no, he's a rules guy. He'll know the rule book by heart.
It's a little more. My language is a little more colorful than that. But
that's
it's a family show, right? It's a family show.
What are you thinking?
Scott's not above browbeating.
So I'm not browbeating. I'm training. So it's the ultimate collaborative effort. You've got the 3, mostly 2 in the booth. You've got someone in New York at headquarters, and you've got the referee on the field. So you've got a lot of eyes looking at it and coming up with a decision in a matter of hopefully 60 seconds. Ideally, they want 60 seconds from the time the referee approaches the tablet or the hood. It used to be the hood, now it's the tablet. To a decision being made. That's ideal. But the league go ahead.
Some of us have always wondered what the man in the booth from New York is. So is there a speakerphone? Is this person on an audible level, like at all times? Do you guys communicate with this person, or does this person literally? I mean, does the phone ring the second the official on field is under the hood? Or
Yeah, they're watching all the games there, so they know when there's a replay coming. So they're
so does
ready.
it phone in? Does he phone in? What happens here?
It's not phone. It's just it's through the headset communications. So.
Okay, okay, I didn't know. You guys are all wearing headsets.
Correct.
Okay, so you can hear everything that's called on the field as well, or only when it steps under the hood do you guys instantly begin access?
No, they all hear each other talk. And depending upon who, some of the crews are a little more chatty than others, but
I'm talking about you. Do you hear what they're saying?
yeah, I can hear them.
That's what he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're all on the same network. You just can't communicate with them until
I don't talk. I talk to the person sitting next to me. I don't contribute to the conversation when the referee in New York are on the call.
Right.
Scott,
Wow.
so the best you can, tell us about maybe an anecdotal story. You don't even have to name the situation unless you want to. We'd love to hear. The more detail, the better. But when we told people you were coming on, people said, tell us about a red alert situation that happened in a replay booth, whether it was a playoff game, regular season game, but some sort of high pressure, high stakes where there was some sort of, it was a hair on fire situation. Is there any sort of anecdotal thing where it went wrong, where it went right? That was the most common question we got to ask you.
The biggest problems usually, I haven't really had any of that experience, but the biggest problems usually occur when the TV network doesn't provide the so-called money shot
Right.
until it's too late. So, sometimes, we have a direct line to the producer, call up, hey, give us everything you got, and they give us everything we got, and the call stands, or we can't overturn it and can't confirm it. And then a minute later, we've the decision's been made, and then we found this one, and then it's too late.
Wow.
So it doesn't happen often,
that's
but
huge.
it happens.
That is huge. That is
Yeah.
a red alert. That breaking news here. That's a huge thing. So what happens? You guys all just look at each other like, well, dude, we made the wrong call. Like, you can't stop the game. Like,
The production of the game is part of the team, so you have to be diplomatic about it. That's all I can say.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it happens.
You know
It
what?
happens.
You know what's funny, Matt? You guys I live in Calgary, and that reminds me of the Calgary Flames way back in the day when they were in the Stanley Cup final.
Lanny
And
McDonald.
game. Well, no, this was back in 2003. So
I'm going back to like 86 or something.
89. Yeah,
Dating
89.
yourself.
Yeah, but no. So like in Game 6, the puck crossed the blue line, and they scored, and they won Game 6. But there was no definitive angles at the time of the game. And then after the game, I guess this mysterious angle came out that showed definitively that the puck crossed the blue line. So I mean, that's like something like that. It's kind of like, ooh, this is kind of sketchy, right?
Listen, it happens.
Yeah.
More often than not, the producers and the staff that put these games on are outstanding. They really are.
Oh, absolutely.
They're
And
tremendous.
like when it's like a primetime game, like a Sunday night or a Monday night game, the production values are higher. So are there more cameras on the field?
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
Good question.
your basic Jaguars game will get like 7 cameras. When
7 cameras on the entire field?
Yeah, and so when it doesn't sound like much. Prime time can get you up to like 22.
Oh.
Yeah.
Triple.
What about
every
like the
angle you
Super
can
Bowl or like a playoff game? Would those be like always like 22, or
Oh,
would they go
yeah,
more?
the 20s without question.
Yeah, because those are all on the network in primetime.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, we probably should have asked you this first, but can you take us through a history of what led you to this? I mean, even starting with like your what fascination you had with sports as a kid growing up.
Oh, sure. Well, my dad was a coach. My dad was a high school basketball coach in Queens, and eventually in the suburbs. But my brother and I always grew up playing sports and loving sports, and I played football, basketball, and baseball growing up. I started umpiring baseball when I was 13.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd been doing like baseball or softball at that age?
No, I hate softball, and I can tell that story after. But I can tell you that story after. But so started doing that when I was 13, and then played competitively in high school, 3 sports, and then when it came time to no longer play, I got involved in doing football, basketball. I started in 1995 in New York City, and then football in '99 in Long Island, and then when I relocated to Jacksonville is when I started doing college football. It was a small NAIA conference, and then after up to last season was on the field and got an offer to go to the Big Ten in a replay capacity. So I've always been involved in sports. They consume me.
Consumes us all, brother.
It's interesting. It's interesting having played competitively, and now officiated, and then now having children who play competitively, and they're a little younger, but the parents don't change. They're
right.
They're all lunatics.
Yeah. No,
I try not to be that person.
Yeah, and Shane, and since you have officiated basketball, you can certainly understand where I'm coming from. And what Scott is having watched him do this, is that he's an attention to detail beyond even the person whose attention to detail. Everything from like in a basketball game, like when a whistle sounds, Scott's watching the clock, which substitutes are coming in, or the coach is trying to sub in something else. So he is the right guy for this job. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like in the replay booth, picking out the details. So Scott, I mean, this is kind of an obvious question, but if you can kind of expound on it a little bit. How does your attention to detail, from the experience I've had with you, how does that, to use that in the replay capacity? I mean, what are you guys looking for? What are some of the things that just might, that the regular fan thinks they see, but the person with attention to detail can catch in a replay?
Well, it's interesting because there are 32 clubs, and each club has a position that just like mine. So the crews are, the 7 on the field and the 2 in the booth. They're coming to a different location every week, so they have different expectations. What's good about me is that I've been doing this for a while. I was a referee on the field. I had the attention to detail. It's funny because they've always stressed, watch the clock. And Alan, as you know, I'm big on the clock. So
that's your thing. Yeah.
Unfortunately, our clock operator here in Jacksonville is a good friend of mine. Used to be on one of my football crews. So we have good personnel, but I'm always watching the clock and little things, because one thing about my officiating career is, I for some reason I just don't get nervous when I'm doing these games. I can't explain it. So I'm always trying to be even keeled.
You're in the game, Scott. You're there, man. You love it. That's what people do when they love they love it. That's what.
Yeah, but even players report having butterflies for a game. Having witnessed Scott do major high stakes sports as far as a referee, he has the same expression on his face whether he's doing a youth JV game or a collegiate finals game. And I've seen it. He literally almost looks like he's bored out there that he's doing it. So good,
So is that just from so many reps? Is that just from so many reps?
Well, that's a great point, Shane. Yeah. Because you tell when you're coaching football players, when they get into the end zone, you tell them act like you've been there before. It's the same thing. You've seen. I mean, there's always things that will come up that you haven't seen before. But if you see things enough and you're calm, cool, collected, and act like you've been there before, it makes the job a lot easier. You go through the same routine. It's all about a process. And once you've gotten that down, it makes things a lot easier.
Hey, Scott, I got a good couple fun questions here for you. Sorry.
Okay.
So number one,
you apologize in advance. I hope they're offensive. Then they better be offensive.
Yeah. No, Scott sounds like he's down to get a couple of.
Oh no,
all right.
I'm gonna sling them your way. Okay, so the mustache man, that is the young upstart of the Jaguars offense. This is for our Dynasty Fantasy Football listeners and also one at Alan Seslowski. But I've been getting, I'm from Washington State here, so I watched Gardner Minshew play. Okay, and I drafted him in our dynasty league. I was probably one of the early truthers on a Gardner Minshew, but I've been getting a lot of talk about Nick Foles and when he returns to that offense. Can you just give me a little bit of insight on the real spunk that Gardner Minshew has, and do you think that he has such a spunk in him, such a buzz around that team that they will put Nick Foles back in that offense? What do you think?
Well, let me start by saying that being a huge college football fan, I watched him play when he was at Wazoo and loved the guy.
You're on the spunk of the mustache.
Mustache is we love the spunky mustache.
Yes.
My wife loves Minshew, so
yes.
But the main thing that I remember when he got drafted is the questioning of whether he could play, and he said something to the effect of I won 10 games in the Pac-12 and I led the nation in passing. I think I'm pretty good. He said something to that effect,
right?
And, he's right. He's got a swagger, but he's down to earth because I've met him before. I actually worked some of the practices too. In addition,
what do you do at the practice? I don't mean the tangent.
Yeah, we're just pretty much just officiate plays.
Okay, I got you.
Give him a real look. Give him an NFL look on the practice
that
field.
makes sense.
Yeah, but he's real down to earth. Most of the players are real nice people.
Well, really do you think that he has enough jazz to ward off the lofty pocketbooking veteran coming back off an injury? Do you think that Gardner Minshew has the buzz of that area? There's no way.
It's all about winning.
Right.
If he wins, I don't know how you take him out. I mean, despite the money,
he's good. He's good.
He's terrific.
He's terrific.
There's another guy named Nick Foles, and he has a little bit of history of winning. So that's
without question. But so you're telling me if they go out and win, if they go out and beat Houston, and they go to 5-4, I guess tied for the lead in the division,
he ain't going nowhere. Nowhere.
You're going to pull him?
No. So this is so. Let me give you some context for our debate here. Matt, Scott, do you play fantasy football?
No.
So in our fantasy football,
I've never been interested in fantasy football, and I have no patience for it.
Yeah, no, totally.
Good for you.
And I understand that it does. It is a time.
Not to mention that both the NFL and the Big Ten kind of frown on that anyway.
Do they? Because I remember, when I was working for CBS and the NFL, that it was frowned on about 10 years ago. But they realize, nowadays fantasy drives the ratings. Fantasy.
Oh, without question. But there's certain positions
that's fair.
Where you should not be engaging in that.
Right.
Right. I guess because it could make a tangible difference. Like if you've got a receiver on your team that makes one of those catches, it's maybe we didn't see the angle. Like it's probably obviously that probably wouldn't happen, but maybe it could happen.
There's nothing left to chance.
Exactly. Just leave it up. Yeah.
Scott's a high roller. He would be in like a $10,000 entry league. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't like to part with my money.
Yeah.
Yes. No. He's a stickler.
So I was going to say, is the genesis of this discussion, Scott, was that Matt's fantasy team heavily relies on Gardner Minshew keeping his job, and I kind of threw some cold water on that last week, saying that yes, of course, if he's winning, he's going to keep the job, but literally the first time he has a bad game, it's they have him under contract for a long time. They invested a lot of money in Nick Foles, and Nick Foles does have a strong history, and he was playing good in that first game until he got hurt. I'm just saying is that the leash is shorter than it would be had there not, had there just been, just some sort of regular run-of-the-mill backup there. That's all. That was kind of the. Do you agree with that, or do you just think like even if he has a down game, one game, that they'll stick with him?
I think if he wins, they'll stick with him. I think if he loses, then Foles will come in.
Right, exactly. So the
what they do at the end of the season is who knows. I mean, they might see value in keeping Minshew for long term and trade Foles again. I don't know.
Yeah, it would just be hard to trade Foles with his contract, and I think that my debate to Matt was they drafted Gardner Minshew in the 6th round. If somebody wants to pay you a 2nd-round pick today for Gardner Minshew, you pull the trigger on that. He disagrees, and I respect that disagreement. All right, the other thing is you're close to the players. Leonard Fournette is somebody that drives fantasy players crazy, but this year he has just been literally one of the best 5 running backs in fantasy football. From what you could see, is his injury history behind him, he just looks like he is literally just the monster that they drafted at pick 4. Talk a little bit about Leonard Fournette.
No, that guy's in some great shape, but I think the prevailing theory this year is just a change in attitude. I think he.
Oh yeah.
All the antics he pulled last year, and he had a wake-up call this year, and he said, I better get my act together and really become a leader again. And I think it's more of an attitude than anything. He's always been a physical specimen. That's not the issue.
I heard last offseason, the 2018 season, he went home and he had like the grits and gravy and like the home cooking meal. Like that was his diet in the off season.
Oh, I have no idea what he did.
Yeah, that's what you hear, right? It's just like, yeah,
who knows? But I don't know. These guys' private lives, I try not to follow them.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
Hey, Scott, I got another one for you. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to lob you up another one. Let's start small here. The ownership of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Have you met them? What is your relationship with them? And this leads into number 2, but go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Khan is a very, very nice, down-to-earth man. He really is.
Now, a lot of you don't know Mr. Khan is a billionaire, multi-billionaire for creating, let's take a guess, what piece on a car is Mr. Tony Khan,
Shah Khan.
Shad Khan is known for becoming, a billionaire from.
Do you know the answer to this, Scott? I have no idea what he's talking about.
It's the bumper.
Hold on, not you, Scott. Dang it, Scott. Oh, you ruined it. Yeah, it's the bumper. Shad Khan is responsible for every single bumper that has ever been made known to man. Can you believe that?
Scott, you knew that?
Of course.
So what do you mean, like he invented it and like he patented it, or what?
Yeah, essentially you can't have a bumper on a car without the Shad Khan design.
Yeah, he pretty much cornered the market.
Wow.
So, I mean, he probably just, every time he backed out of his driveway, he's like, damn, I keep hitting something. I got to
why can't there be something on there?
Yes,
Parking on the street in New York City.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so let me lead you into that. So obviously you have to know that his son, Tony Khan, is embarking up against an uphill battle in professional wrestling. Do you know of this, Scott?
I know that they've started their own league, yes.
They not only started their own league, but they are going up against the biggest conglomerate in professional wrestling history, the World Wrestling Entertainment. Tony Khan, son of Shad Khan, got together with the biggest independent wrestlers of all time, essentially to this date, and he created a company out of the angst of real wrestling fans from probably back in your day, Scott. You probably loved wrestling, Scott. Don't lie.
Without question.
You loved it.
Without question.
Without question. So
if you didn't
Scott,
notice, Matt's pretty passionate about wrestling.
Yes, we have
he came alive all of a sudden.
We have a big wrestling channel on our own podcast, Scott. But please, Scott, can you tell me a little, maybe not a lot, tell me a little about what Tony Khan is doing to try to cement, his own, $1 billion company. Do you know anything about it?
I honestly don't know much detail about
Come
wrestling.
on,
I'm
Scott.
sorry. Well, here's Matt. I'll be honest with you. I have soured on wrestling in the last 15, 20 years. And I'll tell you why. Okay, because back in the 80s, they'd have, you'd have the weekly shows. The punching bags would come out. The stars would come out. They'd win. Then they'd start the feuds in Piper's Pit and places like that. And it would be all the build-up to either Saturday Night's Main Event or whatever next, pay-per-view was.
It's lost,
now,
right?
In the past 15, 20 years, every week they're marquee matchups.
So Scott, here's what I want you to do, Scott. This is what I need, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to go up to Tony Khan, and I'm going to need you to reference this podcast, okay? And I'm going to need you to tell Tony Khan that you give this guy a hug. because he is trying to bring back the wrestling that all of us knew and loved. And you can watch it on Wednesday nights live back on TNT. It's called All Elite Wrestling, owned by one Mr. Tony Khan of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's using all of his media connections, everything for this. And Scott, I recommend you watch it, or I'll send Tony a message myself on Twitter.
Bring in this question. Bringing this interview back on the rail. Scott, you've been really generous with your time.
I haven't officiated pro wrestling, by the way.
Oh,
yes, you're going to get into that. Yeah,
maybe I will.
Is there such a thing as really officiating pro wrestling?
Get knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have a great old time. No, just sitting there with the headset. Get real. Not even part of that. You want to be knocked out? Dude, there's a market for that. And anyway, Scott, thank you for entertaining me. I apologize.
No problem. I love wrestling.
We'll edit all that out. Don't worry, Scott. Just getting back to the replay stuff. I haven't had a chance really. Every time I see you, Scott, we're talking basketball. But what I'm really interested in is what's the next step? Where do you want to take? So you're in the booth right now. Yeah, I know how much you love it. I know you love the nuances of all games from our conversations. But what's the next step for you in your NFL career? Where do you want to take it, if anywhere? Maybe you're happy doing the booth.
Oh, I don't know. I think there's plenty of opportunity in replay because it's obviously getting bigger and more important. I've made good connections. I've got a good rapport with most of the crews that come in and out, and some of the higher ups at the league office. I don't know. I just like to ride the wave. It's not a lot of people get to be where I am, so I'm very grateful for that.
There's only 32 of you, as you said before.
Correct.
All right. So do you? So who do they take to London? Do they take the Jaguars crew to London, or is it just like a separate crew appointed?
Nope. I think they're I'm not sure which crew they're taking, but they're not taking the Jacksonville crew. Otherwise, I'd be there right now.
Right. And then the last follow up. Sorry, Matt. The last follow up that I had for him is that you talked about a little bit before that you did the Chicago, was it Philly game last year?
Yes.
Right. So how did you get selected for that? Obviously, you're good at your craft. That's more than obvious. But so how do they pick who does the playoff games?
Well, like I said, there are 32 different clubs and 32 different people, and everybody has their own style and contributes in a different way to the game, and adds value to the crew in the booth. And whoever has come and worked with me, I think could see that I know what I'm doing and I add value and I'm professional, and that I don't, under pressure, I am.
He doesn't crack.
Still going, don't crack. Yeah, still doing the going through the process and do practicing what I know how to do. So I think people see that, and that's how I was recommended.
Yeah, I think that's a very humble way of saying that you're good at your job. So
humble brag. Good job, Scott.
So
I don't get called humble much.
Games. Do they like all three guys in your booth, or would it just be they choose different people? So they choose just your crew, all three people in your crew, or would they mix up?
No, I was selected separately from my particular position. Yeah, it was separate.
Scott, what rule do you think needs to be addressed? What's the buzz within the replay officials community? Like for me, it would be holding away from the play seems to be a play that's slowing down the viewing experience. What do you think? What's something they need to look at in the offseason, in your opinion?
You're talking about defense
NFL
holding?
Specifically, I was talking about if we got a pitch play or a wide receiver screen to the right. Sometimes if there's a left side of the line holding that has nothing to do with the play, they're still throwing the flag, and all of a sudden this great cool 12-yard play has been brought back on something. It's kind of like in basketball.
You're watching a Pop Warner game?
No, NFL. They've been doing that a lot. They call holding unfair.
Wow.
They call holding on fair when a guy signals for a fair catch. Sometimes they'll call holding, and it blows my mind because the holding has no effect on the fair catch at all. I guess really the question was.
But you can't anticipate that if there's a hold early enough in the play, you can't anticipate that he's going to call a fair catch.
Well,
What if the pitch play to the right comes all the way back around to the left?
Yeah. And then also, there's each member on the field or each official in the field has a spot that they're looking. Like the idea is you're not ball watching, you're watching your zone or your space, right? So they don't know, like may not be, obviously they're aware, but
you still at
aware.
that level you should be aware of it, because even in basketball, you know where the ball is.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But like, if you hit see a block at the at the top of the key or something like that, and you're the lead official and you're looking inside, say the post play, you're not focusing on that. So that's not your call to make necessarily, but you're going to make a call in the key.
Well, the original question for Scott was, what do you think? What's the replay community talking about? Like, as far as that the competition committee needs to look at, what rule needs to be is the glaring obvious one that needs to be talked about?
Well, I don't think anyone really likes the fact that pass interference is reviewable. I think that's got to go.
Interesting.
Otherwise,
but Scott, you have admitted that you do like the human element of baseball or football, so that might just be you like your pure love of the fact that somebody's able at least to call it versus having a computer do it. Do you think that might lead that way a little bit? Because, for me as a fan, I want it called correct. For me as a fantasy football analyst, I want the points that are going to the person that they are going to be called correct, no matter what. So for me personally, I really enjoy being able to replay pass interference. So you're saying you would kind of like that to go away. Is that because the call is obnoxiously hard to even understand, or is it because the speed of the game?
I think it's the speed of, listen, human beings will miss things. And I think the intent of replay, I think I said earlier, is to look at calls that the human eye really can't get.
You're saying all others should be left to the referee or the officials on field, and let's just play ball.
Right, like the ball that comes out near the ground and you call a fumble and it's not. Those are, with these athletes who go to the ground so quickly, it's tough on the human eye. Whether old, young, or anything. The line drive that may or may not hit over the yellow line in left center field. Those things are tough to see with the naked eye. Those are the kinds of calls that should be reviewed.
It's interesting to hear you say
his cleat is next to the sideline or on the sideline, a white cleat next to a white line, things like that.
Yeah, officials get they get so much crap for oh, you blew the call, you missed the call, but I'm always amazed by how these NFL referees get so much right on the toe tapping on the sideline, Scott. So we've kept you for the better part of 45 minutes plus. Let's each give Scott one more lightning round question, and we'll send him out on that. Good, you guys can go first. I'll
Shane, go first.
Lightning round question, okay? No, I mean I guess the question is, one of the things that they were able to get right was how to define a catch, and what goes into these rule committees? Like, is it just what's the largest grievance? Because it seems like they tried to fix the pass interference call and they almost made it worse in a lot of cases. Is this something that the league is comfortable with? Because the NFL's pretty stubborn in general. Do you think that would be something that they would say, yes, we can actually look, if the replay is not working, we're willing to just get rid of it altogether? Or are they just like, no, we're going to do it. Feet in the sand, let's go.
I would love to be invited to a rules committee meeting.
Yeah.
Believe me, I honestly don't know. I don't know what goes on in those meetings.
Okay.
I don't know who wields the power, if it's commissioner, which owners, the Players Association. I don't know who really wields all the power when it comes to the rules. But obviously, there is enough power out of New Orleans, and people that were like-minded, that they needed that reaction to change the rule. It reminds me of Homeland Security being established after 9/11. One of those overreactions, I thought.
Right. Right. Scott, what about holding with NFL linemen? Played the game of football and seeing, how it's played or how you get advantage on somebody offensively. I mean, ideally, it seems like their fingers tip behind the chest plate of the pads. To me, that's a great block. I get that, I get the idea of what holding wants to try to do, but holding on an offensive lineman ideally happens on almost every play. When holding is to be called, what's the general mist around replay officials, and when to call it and when not to call it? Or is it only when it's clearly egregious? Or sometimes it feels like when we're seeing the replay from the TV booth that it wasn't egregious at all. So first talk about what are like maybe people or referees or something are looking for when they're calling a hold, but also like when to call it. Can you speak about that a little bit? Or
Oh, absolutely. So I do training for the local high school association, and whether you're doing Pop Warner or JV, varsity or college or pro, you always want to call the obvious. Is there a material restriction on an opponent? Does it affect the play? Is it at the point of attack? So the scenario you brought up earlier where you have a left tackle holding on a sweep to the right, that's likely not a call we want at any level. But there are extenuating circumstances to anything. Right. The receivers, they'll grab. You'll see them grab on the inside. But to me, I always tell my officials, the defender has to do something to earn the hold. So if he's just going to stand there and not move his feet and just put his hands up in the air and complain about being held, he's not going to get that. I want to see separation. I want to see his feet. I want to see him try to make an attempt on the play, and make it look like that hold is affecting the play. It's got to affect the play. Same thing when when a wide receiver goes out for a pass. If the official looking at that receiver sees him get held, but the quarterback doesn't look his way and throws a quick out pattern, was he held? Sure. But did it affect the play? No, because he wasn't even looking there. Things like that. You want it to affect the play. And that's the bottom line.
Now, hold on, Says. I got another one. This one is kind of this is kind of a tie-in to that. So sometimes, or give it to me like this, Scott. I'm going to ask you a real question. This one's going to be a tough one.
This is the real one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All others were not real. This right here, real now.
Like wrestling?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so would you say that there is or there can be a lot of particular, not one specific person, nobody to name, that might be referees that maybe have a vendetta against the idea that they maybe could never have played basketball, and so now they want to be a referee of basketball. And it seems like they might be unfairly,
Are you asking this bias?
Yeah. Like, have you seen in your time at the professional level or even the NCAA level that some of these referees might be a tad biased? Now, whether it's personal bias, or whatever.
Go ahead, Scott.
Out of all the professions, vocations, avocations that I've ever been involved in, few as a whole have more integrity than officials, because the ones that are the bad eggs tend not to survive, whether they're just not good people, or they're going to adversely affect the game because of their personal feelings. It's not something that is really supported in our community. I mean, you go to battle with fellow officials, and it's almost us against the world. You put the stripes on, and you've got to deal with spectators and coaches and players, and the only people you can look to for support are the other people in stripes. So our job is difficult enough, and biases like that will make it even tougher. And those are not people we want to be around. Like Tim Donaghy.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that? But go ahead.
Well, I'm surprised that it took so long to flesh that out, but you'll notice that nobody else was implicated in that. He was a lone wolf. It's not something that really pervades officiating. So they found him out. They shamed him. They got him out, and the game is better for it, and officiating is better for it.
Also, that was
you just don't get a lot of, especially at the higher levels. Maybe in the lower leagues, you've got someone that doesn't like someone else. That, and they're not serious about officiating. But the ones that are serious about it, that just doesn't occur at any level in my book.
Yeah, something that Scott said. It's echoing from conversations that I've had with him. It's I've been in situations with Scott where coaches are yelling in basketball games, and Scott's sort of standard reply is, "My partner and I," this is Scott speaking, "are the only two in here that don't have a vested interest in the outcome."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that kind of is echoed in what he just said. He truly, just from knowing him, he doesn't have any interest in the outcome. And that I can listen to Scott talk for like 3 hours about officiating because I love it so much. So that's why I'm enjoying this. I won't keep you too much longer, Scott. We'll definitely have you back on because I don't know this for me
is fun.
We
This is a fun
set
conversation.
the clocks back tomorrow night, so it's all good.
Oh, good. But my question for Scott was, has this enhanced or ruined your football viewing experience when you're not working?
What, being on this show?
No, just
Too soon, Scott.
Damn it.
Too soon.
Burned.
Do I need to clarify, or are you gonna
Doing replay?
just watching NFL. Like, can you go watch a
Can
game?
you watch an NFL game or watch a college game and just not be? Because now when I watch basketball, having officiated basketball for the last 2 years, I only watch the referees.
No, I've been watching sports differently since I started.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say started when I was 13, but probably doing high school ball in the 90s was when I started watching sports differently. It is what it is. But now that my kids are playing, I kind of have to go back to that player perspective, maybe coach perspective. But all in all, yeah, I'm watching. If I see a foul or something like that, I instinctively say, "Oh, that's holding. Oh, that's legal formation or something." That's instinctively what I do. That's how I watch sports now.
Scott,
I know you're a professional, but is it tough to sometimes just hold your tongue when there's just an egregious call against one of your kids?
No, it's not. It's not tough because most of the people that are officiating my kids' games are people that I've trained.
Okay.
So, the other parents do all that dirty work, but I'll go up to them at halftime or whatever between games and talk to them. My father was a basketball coach, and
go figure, Scott.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, he was like the quietest person, even when he was coaching, but more so at our games. Like you wouldn't even know he was there. He just, So I kind of learned from him how to act at kids' games and.
Just knowing Scott, personally and stuff, he is a salt of the earth. He is all about the sport. He does the right things in all facets of his life, except for coming on this podcast. This is going to besmirch your reputation, Scott. That's for sure.
Worst thing you've done.
If you only, that's right.
Yeah,
if you only
exactly.
knew what we talked about on
boy.
the podcast. But all right, Scott Aronowitz, replay official. We appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Thanks,
we're
guys.
definitely going to have you back on. You can click out, but. Again, Flex Network is eternally grateful. We know that this. We're excited because we know that we're going to get the clicks and views based on how we promoted you this time around. So
I appreciate it. You guys were great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, my brother.
Scott, thank you.
That
was Scott, a replay official for the NFL and NCAA, and that was, guys. That was wow.
That was fun. That was fun.
Out of nowhere. We're an hour into our podcast. Didn't even feel like I left my seat once. That is how great a guest can be. That's how good a movie can be. And our new background. Do you guys see that? Created that with my friend Z Manzilla, also the creator of the Flex Network logo. He has adorned us a new background. And
is that background or is that an overlay?
It's a It's an
maybe.
overlay, I think. Background or
I
overlay.
put it on as background. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
okay. And then you can also flip the logo to the black logo, and I think that'll be just
This is
almost perfect.
phenomenal for those listening on the audio. This is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, of course, right.
All right.
Yeah, so we will get into our Week 9 Flex Finder podcast. We will not keep anybody too much longer, although to your long podcast listeners, we are just settling in, baby. So says your first flex play on the week. Hit us now.
Okay, so you want me? So we're just going with who our guys are for this.
Your
for week
one
9.
guy is.
Now let's just do our top guy, and let's
Okay.
roll with it.
All right. I mean, you know what? You guys are going to get. Often I get called a hypocrite on this show but I say that I'm allowed to change my opinion. Some guy that I was completely out on. I'm back in.
Here we go.
All right. Well, Matt, you're going to like this one. You're going to forgive me because DK Metcalf is just a monster. I was totally wrong on him. I said this guy, he was going to fail miserably at the NFL level. That I was totally nutless by saying that he was, didn't run all the routes, but it doesn't matter. He's just too big. He can just pull down. And I forgot he's playing with probably the best QB or one of the top 3 QBs in the NFL.
So efficient, yeah.
I mean,
I think that's the real key, though.
I mean, last week, 5 targets, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this sounds like what we thought Mike Williams was going to be.
What a comparison. That is the comparison, though. You're waiting for Mike Williams to do just that there.
Josh, I mean, we're talking about just for week 9. Josh Gordon was claimed off waivers, so that's interesting.
By who?
By the Seahawks. So
there you go.
Are we going to do this again?
Well,
remember when we talked about Josh Gordon coming to the Patriots? I mean, come on now.
Listen, I'm not saying that it's he's going to be Flash Gordon from 7 years ago, but I'm saying for week 9, my first flex finder is DK Metcalf, and you know what? They claimed him. They're gonna try him out. They're gonna Josh Gordon. So, but for week 9, I think DK is, like I said, everything we thought Mike Williams was going to be. Flex.
Wow, DK. DK, a.k.a. Draft Kings. If you played him last week, you might have been a winner. Shane Seeley.
Just one last point on DK Metcalf. I mean, the most obvious thing is I know that Tampa's crossing the country to go and play Seattle. But, I mean, it could be a shootout in that game. And, like DK Metcalf could get 2 touchdowns easy.
Well, according to Roster Watch's just great rankings that they put up each and every week, they have Russell Wilson as the number 1 rated quarterback against Tampa Bay this week. And
specifically, it's like most teams, like Houston, for example, like Darren Fells has been getting all these touchdowns. Like Seattle doesn't even have a tight end. Will Dissly's out for the year. They have it literally a bunch of carcasses at tight end. The DK Metcalf is their touchdown.
Wilson, get out of here with that, right?
Yeah,
come on.
I'm just saying DK Metcalf is their touchdown catcher.
Well, roster watching, glad you brought them up. The number 1 ranked matchup on their matchup tool this week is Seattle Seahawks against Tampa Bay. So I love that call.
Can I tell you guys something else?
Yes.
Just found out today in a sales competition at my work that yours truly, Flex Matt, won tickets to the Seattle Seahawks game against Tampa Bay this weekend in 2 days. Not even going to count against my PTO or time off. I will be there in the 100 level on the home team side, and I will be
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Take note with the World Series with those 2 ladies. Listen, something with Flex Network. Come on, man.
Should I flash the old good ones for the sake of the cast? Shane Seeley, welcome back with your first Flex Network Week 9 Flex play.
Oof. See, man, I just feel constantly shamed by Al, and so I kind of started to go and like all 3 of my
better. I'm telling you, Shane, this is all to make you a better analyst. Of
course. But you know what? The guy that I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go back to the well, and I feel like I'm a friggin' broken record.
Don't do it.
Every single week.
Don't do it.
He's a different player.
Don't do it.
The same team. 1, Kenny Stills.
Kenny Stills.
I mean, you thought I was going to go Kiki, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I can't go Kiki.
I'll tell you why it's a good flex play, because you know what? A lot of people are going to think about leaving him on the bench this week.
Yes,
Yep.
it's a good play, man. It's a good play. I mean, Houston, again, they're always going to throw up the ball. He's playing that de facto Will Fuller role. Last week he had an off game, but he's playing your Jacksonville Jaguars at home in London, their home stadium, of course. And you know what, man? Like, the one thing I always kind of like think about, I mean, I don't want to get too caught up in narratives, but remember these overseas games that are always kind of sloppy? Whenever I think of like
only
a sloppy
because
game,
the Blake Bortles led Jacksonville Jaguars played in 80% of them. They're only sloppy for that reason.
But these sloppy games, they should in theory favor the offensive players, right? I mean, if you're a little bit slower, if you're like half a step behind as a defensive player. I mean, I know we're just kind of picking at certain things here, but Kenny Stills last week, everybody was in love with him. He totally laid an egg with 5 or so points for you. But this week, I mean, I think go back to the well. Deshaun Watson, still Deshaun Watson. They're going to be throwing the ball. There's no Jalen Ramsey. I think it's going to be a good play. I'm trying to play him wherever I can in my flex leagues or in my leagues in my flex position.
I love my first flex finder on the week. We had one Mr. Scott A, replay official for the NFL for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and one of the absolute top-ranked matchups this week is Jacksonville going up against Houston in a 46.5 point over-under. According to Roster Watch's wide receiver rankings, top 7 is our boy, Baby Chark. Can you imagine if you drafted Baby Chark this year, you would have a top wide receiver 1 on the year. The guy's great, but let me talk about his cohort on the other side of the field. If Baby Chark seems to get himself locked up on the week, just like not last week, guys, because last week, guy only got 1 target. Didn't even catch the ball, this guy. 41% of snaps. Chris Conley came out, showed out, and exposed some of the young players on the team as to why they are not yet there. But this week, I see a resurgence for one Dede Westbrook.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure. Is it Chark? Is it Conley? It's Dede.
Dede might not even play. He's banged up, man. I urge you to reconsider.
If Dede Westbrook is in the lineup, says, okay, because we hear this all the time. Banged up this, banged up that. Guy gets in the game and scores the most fantasy points on the week. Yes, he may not play, but if the guy plays, I want him.
If he plays, he's presumably healthy.
I want him. Yes. If just like last week, James Conner is a little bit hurt.
Yeah, but now he's out.
Like top 12. I got it.
If James Conner's doubtful, he's not.
No, he's out.
Put out. Is he officially out? I thought he was officially doubtful.
No, he's doubtful, but it's like doubtful on a level of out. Like doubtful with a little side of out.
I have him in 2 leagues. I'm finding contingency plans in both those leagues.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. The smart flex play might be if Dede's out, then you have to play Chris Conley, right? No, I want Dede. I want Dede only in my first flex play if he plays. It's a smart flex there, says. It's a London game, okay? If he travel, why would he travel? Why would he even travel if he wasn't going to play?
Fair enough point.
Well, the reason he would travel is so that the other team has to assume that he's going to play and plan for it.
Nope, not if he's one of your best guys on an injury, staying home, getting that valuable rest. They're going all the way to London. We heard earlier in the year how difficult it is for the Oakland Raiders and the Chicago Bears in that game.
To go to London?
Yeah.
Well, the Oakland Raiders are traveling like 4,000 miles, literally.
You're coming from the United States, Shane. If you come from the United States and you're going to London, it's a difficult deal. Doesn't matter where you're coming from.
Miles from the east part of the United States to the west part.
Oh my gosh, you can go the other way, Shane. Okay, listen. If you want to play Chris Conley, go the other way. Flexed.
I love it.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll give you my last one, and then I actually have to bow out of the stream. But
we'll do one more quick each because we all got to go.
We'll do one more quick each. That's fine.
Or just lay out the rest of the guys you got. Then
I'll give you my one. I'll give you my power one, and then we'll go from there, and then you can each give one, and you can lay out all the ones you want. That's no problem. But I think the Buffalo Bills have taken a little bit of a step back from that elite level defense, and Washington Redskins, man. I mean, they're starting Dwayne Haskins. So I think what Dwayne Haskins, who's looked like a deer in headlights, he's going to be doing a lot of handing the ball off. And who's that handing off to be? It's going to be Adrian Peterson. I think that Adrian Peterson is a very viable flex start this week based on the fact that, I said, Buffalo has taken a step back. They can be run on. And, they're not going to make Haskins throw the ball more. What's the under over on pass attempts? 18?
Oh, my God, yeah. Al, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny that you're mentioning this because I literally have this lineup decision this week, Kenny Stills or Adrian Peterson, and I'm electing to play Kenny Stills. So let's chat. I'm excited.
Flex
we'll see.
We got to get out of here, guys. Okay, Shane, hit me with your last guys. AP,
okay.
Listen. At Season Long says, at Alan Seslowski, he don't mess around. Okay,
he don't mess around.
Okay, when he tells you to play TJ Hushmanzada in week 1, you do.
Darren Fells?
Darren Fells for a
dude,
monster.
Yes.
Before he was Darren Fells again. By the way, up until like 2 weeks ago, I thought Daniel Fells and Darren Fells. I got them confused. Daniel Fells is on the line.
It hit. Fells. It doesn't matter.
Darren Fells is the guy on Houston, and what did I just say? And Daniel Fells is on the Lions. They're both tight ends.
Let me tell you something right now. If you listen to at Season Long Says, at Alan Seslowski early in the season, you definitely had Kenyon Drake on your lineup, this week.
I told you he's good.
Absolute monster.
Yeah, no,
a monster of epic
proportions.
That word.
But come on,
Kenyon Drake is now on the team that will actually utilize him. Says, go ahead.
Until DJ comes back.
Well,
nope.
I'm just saying. I was wrong about Kenyon Drake to rank him 13th overall among running backs, but at least I'm exonerated in some way because you saw the talent on display when he got an opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wrong.
So this is the perfect segue into my next flex play.
Because
unfortunately, his old teammates is playing the New York Jets this week. I'm electing one.
It smells.
No, what? Preston.
It smells in here. Preston
Williams. It's not so bad. Like he's starting to get the targets. Like last week, 7 targets. Week before that, 8 targets, including the red zone targets. This is a guy who is quickly becoming the number 1 wide receiver on that team. It's kind of a filthy team, but you know what? With Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing you the ball, he's always good to catch some yards. They're not going to run the damn ball. Like Mark Walton, come on now. You can't play a running back on the Miami Dolphins, but you can probably play a wide receiver.
Says how to tap out. That's how unbelievably insane.
He was so upset.
He was so upset. What he's going to be more upset about is the fact that we're running another hour of this thing. Just joking. Go. Do you have another flex player, or are you done?
No, I mean, my third guy, we always have 3 people.
Hit him.
Deontay Johnson, man, with your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Deontay Johnson.
He is continuing to get the momentum. He's getting better every single game. Pittsburgh obviously was high on him. And when you look at who he's comparable to, it's Antonio Brown. So Pittsburgh knew what they were doing when they drafted this guy. Look, I've got James Washington in 2 dynasty leagues.
You're wrong.
I'm prepared to say I was wrong on James Washington. I thought that he was going to be better, but they obviously, we got a lot of respect for Roster Watch, right? What does Alex Dunlap always say at Roster Watch? These guys lied through their teeth through the entire season. The only time that they can really show what their true cards is at the draft. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they drafted Deontay Johnson. James Washington hasn't been coming through. He's got chemistry with Mason Rudolph. They're finally pushing the ball down the field, which we saw last week. I think it's going to be a good little play this week.
That is awesome. Yes. Now, James Washington next year may be a great candidate for a post-type sleeper.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. If Ben comes back, everybody's high on Deontay Johnson. Everybody's weaker or slower on Juju.
Yep.
The real play next year might be to go back and remain your truther status on James Washington. Here's the thing. At least you're calling out that this year may not be your year, but if you stay a truther of James Washington next year, maybe if Big Ben comes back, Big Ben doesn't want to leave his career like that, comes out firing out the gates, Juju is back to a number one receiver, and James Washington is better than a Mike Williams, probably an 8th round pick next year that would switch the tides of your league. To say my final 2 flex plays, it's a smelly one.
Oh,
it's a really, really smelly one. But the number 2 wide receiver matchup on the week with the second highest over-under game. Give me all the Danny Amendola you can give me. Okay?
They don't hate it. That's the worst part. I can't hate it.
You cannot hate it. Danny Amendola last week got 8 targets, and that's great. 8 targets in 1 week, that's great. Guess what he had the week before?
What did he have the week before?
11 targets.
11 targets.
Okay, so usually what we try to do here is we try to say, hey, you know what? This guy got 11 targets. I think he can go for 11 again, but maybe let's give him some more. And what happens? 4 targets, 3 targets for 23 yards and throws a big fat stinker on you.
Hey, Matt, who did they play this week? Who did the Detroit Lions play this week?
The Oakland Raiders this week, which is the number 2 matchup for wide receivers, not even counting Amendola. It's just based off roster watches, tools that their proprietary tools, they believe that the Oakland Raiders defensive backs, after a post-Carry-on Conley trade, the Oakland Raiders are a leaking sieve on the outside. Danny Amendola is gaining the trust of a veteran quarterback. Imagine that. You're Wes Welker type player gaining the advantage of your veteran quarterback. This is the Patriots all. Oh, wait, Matt Patricia is the head coach. This is the 2007 Patriots.
Can I just say something?
Sorry,
I'm actually impressed by the Lions this year.
Oh, yes,
I'm not impressed with how they were using Kerryon Johnson, but I'm impressed that they're actually throwing the ball. Like, they're an exciting team to watch. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, this is a team that I thought they were going to be last season. And
but here's the thing. Why do we think that it would ever be anything different than what the Patriots are running? Sony Michel is not a top 4 pick. The number 1 top 4 round pick, the number 1 running back in a Bill Belichick offense means nothing. So why would we overdraft Kerryon Johnson? Which, if you listen to the Flex Network, you really didn't.
Nope.
We didn't. If you listen to us, we were saying, listen, Kerryon, 5th, 6th round. If you could have him, great.
0 Kerryon in.
Yeah,
all my
I
leagues.
have 0
7
too.
leagues.
Let
0.
everybody else draft Kerryon Johnson. So but we definitely drafted his backup in Dynasty. Yes, we did. Last week didn't work so well. That's okay. Nobody's going to be on this guy.
Ty Johnson's good. He is good.
He's good. He's going to get
his opportunities.
Yep, this week is it. So as much as I am downgrading Kenny Golladay, I'm definitely upgrading Amendola for the fact that as they try to get Ty Johnson in the mix, they're going to have to dump it off a lot. Amendola will be there every time. Book it. And my last flex play on the week, going up against, hold on, let me find it here. The Washington Redskins is one Cole Beasley. Okay.
I'm done. See ya. Bye.
You're done. Let me tell you real quick. Again, In week 7, Cole Beasley with 6 targets. Can he do it again? This is one of those, yes, next week, 3 targets, 2 yards. No. In week 8, okay, Cole Beasley went for more than 6 targets, 7 targets, 3 for 41 and a touchdown. This guy can get your touchdown that you need in your week 9 lineups. Get Cole Beasley in for at Seeley_Shane and at Alan Seslowski. This is the Flex Network. Join us at the Flex Network 1. Thank you. We appreciate it.